Are you tired of losing at chess? Yeah, join the club. If you are, then stick around, and by the end of this video, you'll know some of the things you should never do in a game, or it will cost you. So, we have 7 different things we're going to discuss here. Generally speaking, these are pretty basic, fundamental things that you need to know. If you don't know these things, you're not going to make it very far at the chessboard. So we're starting very, very basic here. Our first note here, first thing to not do in a chess game, you have to take control of the center. A lot of people do not take control of the center. Especially at the beginner level, you will see random moves like a4, for example. That's not the center of the board. When we talk about the center, I mean these 4 squares of the board. Those are the literal center squares of the chessboard. You need to control at least 2 of those, ideally. If you have more than 2 of those under control, you're probably doing pretty well. If you have less than 2 and your opponent has more than 2, you're probably struggling. You know, an example to keep this going, say our opponent plays e5. Okay, now they have a pawn in the center of the board. That's how they should do it. Ideally, we would put our pawn in the center. Well, what if we don't? What if we put our pawn over here and give them a second pawn in the center? This is a pretty rotten position for us already. We have no center control. They control the entire center, and they have easy access for their bishops now. They have a lot of space. It's a very pleasant position, so just note that's something you should not do in chess, not taking control of the center. You need center control. I'm going to go back for our second point here. A problem that is shockingly common as well is people make too many pawn moves. All right, that is something you should not do in chess. Let's say we have e4, all right? And we're going to say e5. Sure. So notice pawns in the center. That's a good thing. Drawing us back to the first point. Good thing to have pawns in the center. But if you follow that up by just moving more pawns, say you put this pawn here, it's not that great. And to clarify, you should be getting your knights and your bishops out too, which is the next thing we're going to get to real quick. But you don't want to just move your pawns around. So let's say black starts moving their pieces out. The knight comes here, for example. Okay, another random pawn move. We'll go here. All right, we'll say they bring the bishop out. Okay, notice they are bringing the knight and bishop out. They've only moved 1 pawn. Meanwhile, we've moved 3. Let's make it a 4th. We've moved 4 pawns now. And just like that, we are losing. All we've done is move pawns. They've moved pieces. And now, of course, it doesn't always have to be this way where we're losing on move 4 because of the exact pawns we moved, but it can happen that fast just because you were randomly making pawn moves and not getting your pieces out. Now, another sort of example, I suppose. Let's say we give a different pawn move. Let's say we go just a random h4. Doesn't do anything, it's just a pawn move. We're going to say black brings a piece out. Here's another pawn move, perhaps with purpose this time. We're going to follow up and attack the bishop. See, at least this time we have some sort of meaning to it. If black messes up, we get to keep attacking this bishop and make it run out of room. But let's say that they don't. Let's say white actually pushes every single pawn up in this game. Meanwhile, black just continues getting their pieces out. Now the bishop has space. Here's another pawn move. Here, at least it's defending. Now we're going to say black plays this knight h5 move because this g3 square is really weak. Notice how the pawns that started here and here defending the g3 square, they aren't there anymore. They moved up. So now this square is weak and a prime target for the knight. Okay, let's move up white's final pawn that hasn't moved. Well, now the knight gets to hop to this square after all, attacking the rook and the bishop. And what's going to happen real fast is the rook is going to have to come up, and then you just take the bishop. And if you look at this, are you going to want to play this position for white? There's not a lot that you like about this. Like you've virtually no development, and I'm not even going to count the rook on h3 as development. You've moved all your pawns up, but that's going to come crashing down pretty fast. Imagine they just take this pawn right here. You're not recapturing because then your queen is defenseless. You would have to recapture this way and expose your king a little bit more. It's just not going to be a very pleasant position. You need to be getting your pieces out like black is going to be doing very fast. So this bishop is coming out, the knight is coming out, and black still has a pawn in the center. This bishop has all this space. White has nothing except a big mess. That is why you don't want to make too many pawn moves. Now, back to the very beginning. The next problem we want to tackle is piece development. You've got to develop your pieces. Okay, leaving your pieces at home is not going to work for you. It just isn't. Now, if you want a good example of what piece development could look like, let's say e4, e5, bring your knight to f3, they bring the knight to c6. Some people like to say bring out your knights before bishops, so for the sake of that example, knight c3, knight f6, bring the bishops out. and then maybe you get castled. Maybe you push this pawn up and bring this bishop out. This is a general nice looking way of how your pieces should be coming out. And it also does matter how the pieces are developed. You know, you don't want it to be just super random. For example, come back to this position. Say you go knight h3. You know, you could argue that develops the knight. It does get it into the game, but what is it doing? Where's it going? It's on the edge of the board. Compare it to black's move, knight f6. Okay, they're attacking our pawn. Here's another bad developing move. Bishop d3. Yes, it brings the bishop into the game, and it even has a purpose. Now the bishop is just going to be stuck here, though, guarding this pawn. Plus, we have the knight over here that's not doing anything. Now, black is going to develop properly, and their development is pretty nice, where they have space for their pieces, and they're developing towards the center. And this knight is aimed at the center. The bishop is attacking a center square, and it's also aimed at a square near the king for what it's worth. Our knight it went the other way. It's at the edge of the board. It's almost as far away from the center as you could be. The bishop is near the center. It's just also not going anywhere or doing anything but guarding a pawn. And the bishop could be replaced by another pawn, and it would basically be the same. So just very unpleasant. Now let's continue bad developing for white. Let's put this knight on the wall of the board. Where's that knight going? You get what I mean? If this knight were to come here instead, it would be guarding in the center, and then we could free up the bishop to move. But no, let's put the knight here. Let's say we both castle. Let's say black develops their knight toward the center, see? It matters how you develop your pieces. It really, really does. And if we want to finish off our bad development, let's go here, and let's put the bishop here. Where's the bishop going? Not a clue. It's actually tied down to this knight, and it's definitely not taking the defended pawn. It's just a very, very bad position. Meanwhile, their bishop comes out here and attacks our queen. And now our queen's going to be moving somewhere uncomfortable, maybe here. You can't look at this position for white and say, yeah, I would love to play this. No, this is dreadful. Black hasn't had to do anything remarkable. They've just had to develop their pieces. That's all they've had to do, just develop their pieces, and they're good. Pretty simple and straightforward. We're going to go back to move 1 and on to our next point, which is you have to stop bringing out your queen early. You do not want to bring out your queen early. It will lead you to nothing but disaster. And I will show you. All right, a lot of people will do this. They'll go queen h5 on the second move, thinking, ooh, I'm going to checkmate them in 2 more moves. And it's a nice thought, and admittedly, it will work sometimes because people move too fast and don't pay attention. And when it works, it's great, except that the vast majority of the time, it's not going to work. Because even if they, they stop the checkmate, but also they let you have the pawn, that's not even guaranteed to go your way. Like, the problem with bringing out your queen so early is it becomes a target. The reasoning people have for bringing out their queen early is, oh, it's my most powerful piece. And that makes sense. But the more powerful the piece, the bigger the target. That's what the queen is here, just a big old target. So you can pick up this pawn here and then make a developing move. Well, instantly, that target, they're attacking right now. All right, slide on over. Oh, look at that. They're finding a way to attack again. Well, even here, they could keep attacking by moving this knight, and then the bishop would be attacking the queen. But we'll say they go here. Let them have this pawn. Oh, here's another attack on the queen. Oh, suddenly we are down a piece. That wasn't great. That didn't go our way. The rook is coming up to attack the queen real soon. This knight's coming to the center to attack here. It's just a big mess. All because your queen came out early. So not at all what you wanted. Now on to our next point. You do not want to block your own pieces from developing. So this kind of ties back into the whole, you need to develop your pieces thing. Develop toward the center, put your pieces on squares where they do something. So right here, the ideal developing move would be knight f3. You're attacking the pawn in the center. It has purpose. Then you can bring the bishop out so you can castle after that. Let me give you an example of how to not develop by blocking in your own pieces. You could play knight e2. And the move knight e2 is not terrible or anything. In fact, it's still a fine position that you're in. The problem is it slows you down because you still need to get the bishop into the game. But now you're going to have to move this knight again to get the bishop into the game. Or you're just going to have to go for some kind of awkward setup where you push the pawn, which is still an extra move you're having to play, and then put the bishop there. And then the other part of this is, where's your knight going anyway, right? What is it doing there? So let me put in some normal looking moves. Let's say black goes here, attacking the pawn. Now we can come develop our knight over here to defend the pawn. Say they develop the bishop. Let's say we move our knight because we realize we want the bishop to come out so we can castle. They castle, we move the bishop out, And if they just played a move like knight c6 and we castled, it's a pretty normal and equal position. But the fact that they basically got an extra turn because we moved our knight twice instead of just once, it's the difference of one square too, right? We just went from f3 to g3 with an extra move, basically. They have time to do other things, like, say, c6. The knight's supposed to come here to guard this pawn, but nothing's attacking it, so that changes things. So we'll say c6 is played. We'll say that white castles, and then black plays d5, and then takes here. And you look at this position. All right, black ends up with 2 center pawns, good development, no weaknesses, no problem. Meanwhile, we did get 3 pieces out. They aren't the greatest pieces, though. All right, the bishop and knight over here are just okay. At least they're aimed at a center pawn, right? The knight on g3, I'm not really sure what that knight's doing. And then we have a bad bishop over here. We're going to have to probably play d3 real fast so we can get it into the game. And then after h6 is played, good luck finding a proper square for this bishop to go to. It's just a very uncomfortable position because you lost time earlier in the game by blocking your own pieces from developing. So that is a big no-no. Do not do that. Now, I want to come back here. Another thing is king safety. Oh yes, king safety. Very, very, very important. And I'll show you an example because a lot of people make this mistake. They play a normal game, and then what they do is they forget that they have to castle. Which, I mean, okay, it happens, right? It's a big issue at certain times, especially if white actually figures out how to get a good attack going. And I'm going to show you just an example game here where we go knight f6 here, d3, d6. So notice something here. White has castled. Black has not. Right now, that is not an issue. And generally speaking, it's not an immediate issue if you hold off on castling. Sometimes it's wise to hold off on castling. Sometimes there's no rush. But if you wait too long, it will come back to bite you. So normal move for white, knight c3. Let's give black a slow move that also isn't bad. A6. We're going to go bishop e3 and offer the trade. And it's still equal here. This is totally fine. Now would be a good time to castle. And if, in general, if you can castle and you don't, you should have a good alternative, right? Like here, a good alternative might be come pin the knight with the bishop, or maybe offer a trade on e6 with the bishops. Just something that accomplishes anything. Instead, let me give you a move that doesn't do much of anything. Let's say bishop d7. All right, well, here's the problem. We were actually threatening knight g5, and now we have an attack on f7, which they need to be very, very wise about handling. Now, the only way now for them to really handle this is actually to castle. Problem is, it's a little bit too late now. We play knight d5, and our attack is coming so fast. Like, if they don't take, we are taking. And they can't really just comfortably move away, or else our queen is coming out here. So they're probably just going to take, and we don't even take back. We just come here with our queen and threaten mate in 1, which basically forces h6. And then we have this nice move here. Knight takes f7. Our queen and rook both guarding it. And now we're attacking the queen too. It seems like most people would take, and then you capture the knight. You might get yourself a position like this. The end result is you're up material, and you're feeling very, very good about this. All because they didn't castle. Back in this position, it's kind of crazy. If they just castle right here, and then we play knight g5, it makes all the difference. Like here, they actually have time to figure this out. Since we want to go knight d5, okay, well now they can go knight e7 to prevent it. If we go knight d5 now, they're just going to capture. They actually have a chance here to defend and keep the bad stuff away. It really can make all the difference. So be very careful about castling early, generally within the first 10 moves, and after you've developed your kingside knight and bishop. If you wait too long, it will cost. Now, our final point of today, you need to slow down. Take your time. Check for blunders and threats, all right? This is such an underrated, undervalued part of the game because a lot of people will say it, but then they won't actually act on that. Everyone will tell you, oh, you got to slow down, and they'll say that while not slowing down. It's a big deal. So let's get some moves on the board, and I can show you where you may want to slow down in certain positions. So we'll go e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, knight c3. So basically, slow down and think. Actually, I want to go back one move. When they played knight f6, the first thought should be, okay, why did they do that? And you want to get in the general habit of when your opponent makes a move, you ask yourself, why did they do that? Like, we know why they played e5. It was to put a pawn in the center for center control. We know they played knight c6 to defend the e5 pawn. Why would they play this? Well, you stop and think, it's to attack our pawn. And that's why we play knight c3 to defend our pawn. And that's how we always want to be thinking. We want to slow down, process their move, and go, why did they do that? And then figure it out. So then we put on another move, knight a5. Okay, we slow down, we look at that and go, whoa, why did they do that? And pretty quickly you should see they are attacking the bishop. So now we respond to that by defending the bishop. Okay, they capture, and we don't really need to do the whole slow down and think thing in this scenario because it is fairly clear we are just trading pieces. And then they'll play this, which we can see is a move guarding their pawn. And then let's say we get some more moves on the board. We'll go here. They'll develop their bishop. We both castle. We'll bring our queen up. And then a move like this. Why would they do that? This one is a little less obvious, perhaps. But they are trying to capture our knight so that we would have to capture with our pawn. And it opens up our king a little bit more. So our king's safety would become in question at that point. So we don't want to do that. That kind of goes back to our previous thing where you want to castle early and to keep your king safe. So here you want to do something to stop that. You go queen e3 so that if they capture the knight, you capture with your queen instead of with the pawn exposing the king some more, because you want to keep these pawns in front of the king, you know? Now, a few more moves. We'll say they go here and we'll go here. Now, here's a position where you need to slow down. You do not want to rush this. Let's say they go knight g4. I couldn't tell you how many people I know who would just instantly, without thinking, slide their queen on over one square, or maybe down one square. I'm not sure which direction, but I can see so many people reacting impulsively here and moving their queen over because, oh, knight attacks queen, queen move. Great. I'm glad you saw their move and you realized, oh, yeah, they're attacking my queen. I need to move it. That's great. We got to come back here and slow down. Take your time. Check everything. Look at the whole board. All right, because there's more going on here. We have an attack on our bishop as well. So if we move our queen to the wrong square, well, we might just be down a piece here. If we recapture, they recapture. We're still down a piece. Not going to go our way. So that certainly matters. It matters where we put our queen. But then we also notice this, and I know a lot of people who would notice the knight attacking the queen and then notice the bishop attacking the bishop, and instead of thinking some more, they would impulsively capture. But this is something we needed to slow down and think through first. We need to calculate. You know, we take bishop, they take queen, we take queen. They take rook. Okay, so we traded queens. They got a rook. We did not get a rook. So we are down material right now. We take knight, they take bishop. No, we have an extra knight. They have an extra rook. We're losing because of that. That was not what we wanted to do. We never want to make these captures without thinking. We got to slow down, scan the board, look at everything, take your time, check for the blunders, check for the threats, and figure out how you can solve it. Because if you really slow down and think here, you're going to conclude if you just slide your queen back one square, you save your queen from the attack while still guarding the bishop with your queen. And so now when they capture, you can recapture comfortably without any worries, and you are still totally fine. All you had to do was slow down, take your time, and just examine the board, look at what's going on, find the threats, see if there are any blunders, and if you do that, you're going to be okay. So to recap, all right, things that you need to do in chess, and things that you maybe are not doing, and that's why you're losing. All right, you're not controlling the center. All right, you need to not make too many pawn moves at the start of the game. All right, you've got to develop your pieces. You need to stop bringing your queen out too early. You need to stop blocking your own pieces from developing. You need to focus on king safety, castle early, castle often. You got to slow down, take your time, think through everything, check for blunders and threats, all right? These things can be really, really easy, or like this last one, they can be a bit more difficult. But if you get yourself into the repetition of doing these things, make yourself a mental checklist and go through move by move, every single move, and you get it down, you're going to improve so much, and I really hope you do. So there you go. Congratulations on learning about 7 things you do in chess that is causing you to lose, or 7 things to not do in chess. If you're interested in learning about 6 traps in the Caro-Kann defense, by the way, then click the video appearing somewhere here on the screen. That's all I got for you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this helps you out. I'll see you in the next video.